Now tell me if this is you. You step on the scale every single day, all week, and you see these drastic swings in your weight represented in the number on the scale. 2 pounds up, 4 pounds down, 3 pounds up, 2 pounds down, 4 pounds up, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? This can be very, very mentally and emotionally frustrating, because imagine you're working out hard, you're eating right, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. But tomorrow you step on the scale and you go, oh, nice, I'm 2 pounds down. But then the very next day after that, you step on the scale and you're back up 4 pounds, to the point where it's like you never lost any weight at all. This can have you extremely frustrated. But before you give up on weighing yourself on the scale, which a lot of people do, I want to take some time to explain how to accurately gauge fat loss. Let's start with some good news. Good news is, if you step on the scale today and you were 3 pounds or 4 pounds heavier, or even 2 pounds heavier from yesterday, you'd actually gain several pounds of fat overnight. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Here's the deal. 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. Okay? So in order for you to have gained a pound of fat overnight, you would have had to consume a surplus of 3,500 calories. Several thousand calories is a huge surplus of calories. And if your goal is to drop body fat, I'm willing to bet a lot of money that you did not consume several thousand calories more than you should have. Okay, unless you have a very aggressive way of eating and zero self-restraint, right? So moving on from that, here's the deal. There's nothing really wrong with stepping on the scale and weighing yourself from day to day, right? Just to get that extra feedback, maybe just because you're just curious, right? You want to check in and see how things are going. But the most important numbers are not from day to day, they're from week to week and month to month, and of course year to year, right? So my ideal thing to do is you wake up first thing Monday morning and you step on the scale. You document that number, and then you compare it to the number that you get next Monday morning, first thing in the morning before you eat. Okay? So, hypothetically, let's say you weigh 180 pounds. Next week when you step on the scale, ideally, if you've done things right, you should see a number that is 1 to 2 pounds lower, right? Where you would end up being, you would go from 180 to 179 or even 178. That may not seem like much, but the thing is that a reasonable and sustainable level of fat loss is anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds of fat per week, equaling a minimum of 4 pounds a month and a maximum of 8 pounds a month. Okay? Now, even if you were to go the bare minimum and just consistently lose a pound a week, 4 pounds a month, within a year's time, you would drop 52 pounds of fat mass. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen what 52 pounds of fat mass looks like, but I'm telling you right now, it's a huge amount. I'm talking a ginormous amount. If you see it lying on a table, you'd be like, wow, that was in my body? It looks ridiculous. So that's a reasonable rate of expectation, okay? 2 pounds a week, that's pretty ambitious. And there's a caveat to it. Now, ideally, we'd like to lose fat at the fastest rate possible. But you gotta be a little bit smarter about it. It's not that simple. So let's say you shot for the 2 pounds a week and you were successful. 2 months, you dropped 16 pounds of fat mass. But after that, and what often happens is after a couple months or even 3 months, you plateau and your progress flatlines. And you stay in a calorie deficit and you see the plateau, so you go, I got to drop my calories even more. And then you drop them even more, still plateau, flatline. And people fall into the trap of constantly reducing their calories to the point where they're barely eating. Still on a plateau though. This happens because your body adapts to a calorie deficit. And your body will adapt to a steeper and steeper and steeper calorie deficit, to the point where you lose no weight and you just feel depleted, depressed, frustrated. You just feel horrible all the time. And the only way to get out of that plateau is you got to get out of the deficit. You got to eat at least at maintenance, if not a surplus. Because you're going to have to get your body readjusted to eating more calories. Now, in doing that, you may gain a pound or two. Maybe even gain 3 pounds. It really depends on how long you were in this drastic deficit, right? But of course, the deeper you get, the more you got to sacrifice to come out of it. That's just the nature of the game. If you don't want to go through that whole struggle and you want to take a more simpler route, you want to be more patient with the process, then I would say strive for anywhere from 1 to 1.5 pounds a week, right? And of course, that would total out to be anywhere from 4 to 6 pounds dropped of fat mass per month, right? I think that's a reasonable rate, and it doesn't get too complex, so you don't fall into a plateau. You avoid that mess right out the gate there, and you don't feel like crap, right? Now, of course, things vary depending on how much body fat you have on you, right? But as a rule of thumb, that's my suggestion. Now, if you have, let's say you have like 100 pounds to lose, okay, you're just crazy morbidly obese, overweight, or whatever the case is, right? If you're in that condition, it would be a lot easier for you to drop the weight, right? You'd drop a tremendous amount of water, and you drop a tremendous amount of body fat. This happens a lot of the time because your body doesn't want to retain needless amounts of fat and needless amounts of water. Okay, your body wants to get rid of all that stuff because that stuff's inconvenient to carry on. It's just unnecessary baggage. Now, if your body's not responding that way and you're really, really, really overweight and the weight loss is happening really, really slowly, I'm willing to bet that that's more than likely a result of your body holding on to water and excess body fat as a means to protect your organs from toxicity, or that's an inflammatory response to an underlying health condition. Maybe something like type 2 diabetes, some type of heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, fatty liver, something along those lines, right? Insulin resistance, where your body is holding on to these things due to inflammation and having an underlying health condition, which, if that's the case, then you're going to need to have a diet that is more geared towards healing rather than just fat loss, right? So every morsel of food that you put in your mouth matters a lot more. It's not just about the calories or the macros at that point. It's really about your gut health and all of that type of stuff, which is an entirely separate conversation. We're just talking about the scale right now. So all in all, this is what you can reasonably expect from the scale as far as your rate of weight loss, in particular fat loss, which is the main goal. Okay, the goal is not to drop water weight necessarily, because there's not a whole lot of a point in being dehydrated, right? We want to drop body fat, not unless you're trying to step on stage for a bodybuilding competition. Then maybe you want to look a little dry and have that thin-skinned look, to be all oily and striated, if that's your thing, right? It's not necessarily mine. I'm more of a wellness kind of guy, right? But fat loss, okay, 1 to 1.5 pounds down on a weekly basis, okay? So we measure from week to week. It's that simple.